Hello and welcome to the part 3 of building the application. In this part of the video, we are going to create some objects using the self variable. The self variable basically is used to represent an instance of the object itself. We're also going to use the entry function, which is a function that is used to accept input from the user. The next thing I'm going to do is create an object and also an entry function that will accept user inputs. On line number 11, I've created an object called self.amount_to_convert_var. The self basically is a variable that represents an instance of the object itself. And I've set it to equals to string var. Now this string var method basically is a class from tkinter. It is used to monitor changes to tkinter variables. Line number 12, I've added an entry function, and the entry function is basically used to accept inputs from the user. And I've got some properties inside this entry function. We're referring to the window variable, which is from line number 5. And then we've got a text variable here, and I've set it to equals to this value on line number 11, which is a self.amount_to_convert_var. And then I am justifying it to the right, that is positioning the output to the right. And I'm also placing it inside a grid, and the position on the grid is going to be row number 1, and the column on the grid is going to be column number 2. On line number 13, I've added another object variable, which is self.conversion_rate_var, and I've set it to equals to the string var here. Line number 14, I've added an entry function similar to the one on line number 12. The only difference here is that within this text variable, I've given it a value that matches the object name on line number 13, and set the justify also to the right, but the column on the grid is 2 and the row on the grid is number 2. Okay, so notice the positioning on the grid, the row numbers are different for both entry functions. I have added 2 more lines of code, line number 15 and line number 16. Line number 15 here, I've added another object called self.converted_amount_var, and I've set it to the string var, just like I did with the previous ones. The only difference with this object is that line number 16 here, I have no entry function because I'm not expecting any input from the user. This is where the value for the converted amount is going to be displayed. So I don't expect an entry, I expect the result for the converted amount to be displayed. So here, line number 16, I've got a variable called ABL converted amount, and then I've set it to equals to a label. I'm making that a label, and inside that label I've got different properties, just like the properties from label on line number 8, 9 and 10. I'm giving it a font with a value of Helvetica, size of the font, the boldness of the font, background color, and then here we've got a text variable, just like I've done with line number 14. Text variable here, I'm setting that to equals to the object name on line number 15, which is self.converted_amount_var. Again, I am adding this to the grid. The position on the grid is row number 3. The column on the grid is row number 2. I'm also adding a sticky argument of east because I want it to be positioned to the east. just before wrapping up this video, I have added comments to the code. Comments are very important. They help you explain your code. They can also help someone else who has to look into your code to try and understand what's going on. So you can tell a comment by this hash symbol here. You can see line number 1, I've got a comment here. If you place the comment on the right hand side, it does not affect the code. It's very important that you place comments in the right place. If you place a comment in front of the code, it will comment out that code, and that code will not be interpreted when Python tries to run the code. All right, so it's very important. You notice here I've put all the comments just at the end of the code. That way it doesn't affect it. You can see the comment is kind of like dimmed or grayed out. So when the code runs, the comments are actually ignored. So you can see here, all these are comments with a hash symbol comment. I just say this should be a special function. And then here also, I've got a comment. It just says line number 9 is a comment, adding label widgets to application window. So basically just gives you an idea what this bunch of code is doing. And then this one here also tells you what this bunch of code is doing. Okay, so comments are very useful, and I strongly recommend you try and incorporate them when you are writing code. So that is it for this video. We will continue building the application in part number 4. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.